What's up everybody on YouTube, AJ Russ back to discuss another video, and today we're going to be talking about what we learned from this year's NFL Week 1. Guys, y'all don't know how excited I am to say that football is back, and particularly, of course, in this video, the NFL is back. We've had college football back for a few weeks, but nothing is like the NFL in my opinion. Basketball, of course, is my favorite sport, but I do love football as well. It was my first love, the first sport I played, so definitely glad it's here. And today I just want to cover some of the storylines that we saw from this NFL Week 1, starting from Thursday Night Football all the way to the last game between the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. But before that, make sure you hit that like button on the video, make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications. I post videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture on this channel. So with that being said, let's get into the video. We have to talk about the first game that kicked off the NFL season of Thursday Night Football, the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, the Lions did win that game 21-20. And players like Travis Kelce and of course Chris Jones, who was holding out because of his contract, did not play in this game, and of course Kelce didn't play because of a hyperextension. That for sure lessened the ability of the Chiefs offensive game and defensive game. But I will say that defensively the Chiefs didn't play bad, but the Lions, they definitely show that they are here, are going to be a real threat in the NFC and really in the league. Jared Goff looked really impressive. He hasn't had a turnover since week 9 last year. So Jared Goff has really been looking good for the Lions. Of course, they have Jahmyr Gibbs. Montgomery played really good in that game. Of course, Amara St. Brown. So a lot of things that are looking up for the Lions. But in terms of the Chiefs, of course, Patrick Mahomes does Patrick Mahomes things. We know what to expect from him for sure. The best quarterback in the NFL. But some people would say that he looked pedestrian in the game, but I would argue that, of course, if he doesn't have his number one option and Kadarius Toney is dropping 4 catches that Mahomes is putting on the money, that's going to derail the success of your team getting a win. So what I would say to Chiefs fans and just NFL fans in general is just to relax. The Chiefs are going to be fine. We had this whole situation last year with Tyreek Hill leaving, going to the Dolphins. People are saying that Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to look the same, things like that, but that's the thing about week 1. It's literally an overreaction frenzy. I want to talk about quickly a matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. Baltimore Ravens, of course, they were expected to win this game. I would say by more. I was watching that game, and there were definitely some hiccups in the new Todd Monken offense. I didn't like how Lamar Jackson threw that early interception, and then he had a fumble earlier in the game that really should have been a turnover, and then ultimately he fumbled again. So they're definitely going to have to check those problems, and I expect more from Lamar Jackson in terms of that area, which he'll clean up, I feel like. One thing I liked that I saw from the Baltimore Ravens was Zay Flowers, how he was really able to get involved. Had 9 receptions for 78 yards. Had a couple of explosive plays, so I feel like he's going to be really good in their offense. Rashad Bateman had some plays as well. And although Odell Beckham Jr. didn't have the most receptions or touchdowns, he definitely had an impact in terms of drawing pass interference penalties. And just his presence as a whole is going to help the Baltimore Ravens going in the future. And on the Texans side, I will say that CJ Stroud looked very poised. They struggled to score a touchdown, which they couldn't in this game, but I have no doubt that he'll get his first NFL touchdown next game. And the defense, they were erratic sometimes. They made some good plays, but at the same time, they cost themselves in penalties. But this game, just in particular on both sides, there was a lot of injuries. Unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins is out for the year with a torn Achilles. Missed the season 2 years ago with injury, so that's really tough for the Ravens. I swear they're cursed injury-wise. Staying in the AFC North, we're going to talk about the matchup, which was really surprising. In the Cleveland Browns beating the Cincinnati Bengals 24-3, the Battle of Ohio. We expected this game to certainly be more closer. But man, like I said in my quarterbacks video that I made a couple weeks ago, the Browns would be a wild card, and I felt like they could have real success going into this season, and they made a statement. That defense is still good. They have Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, pieces like that. And of course, Deshaun Watson, he didn't have necessarily the best game, and of course we know he didn't play that well last year, but he was suspended, so I would put an asterisk by that. But as he continues to get into form, the Browns could be a real contender in the AFC. The Bengals, this is a wake-up call, I would say. Joe Burrow, he really had an inefficient game, only completing 14 of his 31 passing attempts for 82 yards total. That's really alarming. So we'll see what happens in the AFC North, but this is definitely one of the surprising games. But that Browns defense is real, and that's what ultimately made the difference in this game. And also staying in that division, let's talk about the Steelers. They got absolutely smoked, losing 30-7 against the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers showed why they're going to be a real threat to the Philadelphia Eagles in trying to get back to the Super Bowl. Nick Bosa, just off his new contract, played in this game, and that defense was really scary. The Steelers couldn't get anything going. Kenny Pickett threw an early interception, and really they were just down and out from the beginning of the game, which is so different to see a Mike Tomlin-led team look so helpless out there. The offense at times looked very stagnant. Kenny Pickett did ultimately throw 31 for 46, having 232 passing yards, and only had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. So he had a lot of yardage, but they started off too slow, and really it didn't mean anything. Brock Purdy, like I said, he started off where he was last year before he got injured in the NFC Championship game. 19 for 29, 220 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Brandon Ayuk had a really good game, 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions for 129 passing yards. Christian McCaffrey, I wish I could have got him in fantasy, had 22 carries, 152 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, hey, the 49ers, they're looking very scary, a real threat in the NFC, but in the league as a whole, of course. And for the Steelers, I still expect them to be competitive. This game was really not the best matchup-wise for them, I would say. And Kenny Pickett, there was a lot of noise about him taking a huge jump, and I feel like he'll still take a jump, of course, but not as big as everyone else was saying. But both of these teams, they're definitely headed in different directions, and that's one thing we learned from this game. The Jaguars beat the Indianapolis Colts 31-21, and the Colts, they definitely did play a competitive game. Anthony Richardson looked pretty solid. Had a little injury in that game, but like Trevor Lawrence was saying, just giving him advice saying to protect himself and that those hits add up. So that's one thing with Anthony Richardson being so athletic. He has to gauge how much he runs and uses that athletic ability, because it definitely takes a toll over time. He also completed 24 out of his 37 passing attempts, having 223 passing yards and 1 touchdown, rushed for 40 yards and had a rushing touchdown. The biggest thing with Anthony Richardson, for me and for a lot of people, is just having and getting that experience. Only played 1 college season really in the grand scheme of things, and we clearly see his potential as an athlete. Moving on to the Jaguars side, this team I feel like is going to be really good in the AFC going forward. Of course, last season they made the divisional round and beat the Chargers in the first round, so things are looking up. They also have the return of Calvin Ridley, who was suspended last season. He had 8 receptions and 101 receiving yards and a touchdown. So he's going to be really good for them. And of course, Trevor Lawrence, I feel like he's going to take another leap this year. Completed 24 out of his 32 passing attempts, throwing for 241 passing yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. So I think that the Jaguars are going to be the favorites to win the AFC South. That goes even forward more with the Tennessee Titans losing to the New Orleans Saints. One thing we've known for sure with the New Orleans Saints is that their defense is definitely dominant, and we saw that today. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, only completed 16 out of his 34 passing attempts, so the defense was on him heavy. And then of course this is Derek Carr's first game in New Orleans after spending 9 seasons with the Las Vegas Raiders, and of course Oakland before that. We saw the return of Michael Thomas in this game, who I feel like is going to be really good for that offense. Of course, they also have Chris Olave, who had 8 receptions and 112 yards. Evaluating the NFC South, I definitely would say that the Saints are the favorite to win that division by far. I mean, of course, you have the Buccaneers, who won against the Vikings today, which we'll talk about in a second. But what we can take away from this game is that the Saints, they're going to be a tough and gritty team. For sure, I think we'll make the playoffs and win that division, but beyond that, I think that's their max and their ceiling. And with the Titans, I don't even know about them, but Mike Vrabel, I definitely still believe in him as a coach. Going into that Bucs game, man, what a pleasant surprise. The Buccaneers beat the Minnesota Vikings 20-17. Baker Mayfield had a really good and solid showing, completing 21 out of his 34 passing attempts, throwing for 173 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Kirk Cousins, I would say he had a really good game. Of course, he did throw an interception, but he completed 33 out of his 44 passing attempts, having 344 passing yards. After watching that quarterback series on Netflix, I have a ton more respect for Kirk Cousins. He takes a lot on the field in terms of the toll and hits that he takes as a quarterback. But at the end of the day, we're going to be critical of how he plays, and the Vikings, they really laid an egg, in my opinion, in this game. This is post-Tom Brady era for the Buccaneers. Not a lot expected for them. We'll see what the Buccaneers do. They could compete with the Saints, like I was saying earlier. And for the Vikings, they better come with it, because the Lions, they are for real. And of course, with the Green Bay Packers, which we'll talk about in a second, they had Jordan Love and no more Aaron Rodgers. So that division in NFC North, it's going to be interesting to see how it develops as well. Speaking of that game, the Green Bay Packers would go on to dominate the Chicago Bears, winning 38-20. And talking about Jordan Love even more, he looked really good and really poised in the game. Threw 15 for 27, having 245 passing yards and 3 tutties. He looked really good, and of course the running game was very prevalent, having Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, 2 backs who have been with Green Bay for a while now. And even Christian Watson didn't even play in this game, so things are really looking up for Green Bay. I feel like they're still going to be solid in the NFC North. Their defense looked really good, still having Jair Alexander. Green Bay could have their next franchise quarterback in Jordan Love. Only time will tell, and we'll see throughout the year. But from the Chicago Bears perspective, man, what a way to be dominated again by the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers said that he has always owned them, and it's looking like the Packers are continuing to get owned, and maybe Jordan Love took up that ownership. We'll see what happens. Justin Fields didn't have the best game. They really weren't able to get too much going. Offensive line looked terrible. And then their new acquired DJ Moore from the Panthers last season, he only had 3 total targets, which is really terrible if you're looking for Justin Fields to have a leap like Jalen Hurts did last year, or potentially how Josh Allen did a couple years ago, adding in that wide receiver. You have to look at him more. But we'll see with the Bears. Just not looking good from their perspective. But like I said, Week 1 is overreaction week. Arguably the most electric game that took place in Week 1 was a matchup between 2 quarterbacks drafted in the 2020 draft in Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa between the Miami Dolphins and the Chargers, where the Dolphins would edge the Chargers, winning 36-34. Tyreek Hill made a lot of huge plays, had over 100 receiving yards in the first half, and in total he had 11 receptions, 215 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tua looked really good, threw for 466 passing yards, had 3 touchdowns. And Justin Herbert on the flip side, he played a solid game, I would say. You would expect maybe a little bit more out of him in this matchup, but like I said, it's only Week 1. Both really good teams that should make the playoffs, of course. And with the Dolphins' perspective, really, they can be one of the best teams in the AFC. We've known that even last year. It was just about Tua staying healthy, and we've seen in the offseason he's learned how to fall properly and things of that nature. So hopefully he'll be able to play the entire duration of this season, and we'll see the Dolphins' true potential because, of course, they still have Jalen Waddle. Their defense is really good as well. And then the other side for the Chargers, they're in the AFC West, of course, with the Chiefs in that stacked AFC, but I still feel like they'll be able to make noise. I mean, it was a tough matchup, so not really too surprised that they lost the game, and it was a tough game, and it was a close game, so really can't take any shame in that. The game that took place in Foxborough between the Eagles and the Patriots really wasn't close at first, as the Eagles were up 16-0 early in the first half, but the Patriots were able to garner their momentum and almost came back in the game if it wasn't for that last 4th down play where, I know I'm probably saying his name wrong, but Boot, he was out of bounds on that throw from Mac Jones, which is really a good throw, but he only had 1 foot in, so that ultimately cost him the game. But the Eagles were definitely tested, and you know, with the Patriots, led by Bill Belichick, they're always going to have a tough defense. But they were a little sloppy, I would say, the Eagles were, but they play the Vikings this upcoming Thursday. The Vikings lost to the Bucs, so we'll see if they have a game that puts the world back on notice, saying that we're still the best team in the NFC. And for the Patriots, I mean, they're always going to be a tough out, but at this point with the post-Tom Brady era, I really don't expect too much from the Patriots. No disrespect, but that's just my perspective on it. The Cardinals and Commanders played, and not really too much to talk about there. Sam Howell is probably the Commanders' long-term solution at quarterback going forward, and then the Cardinals, they just played Joshua Dobbs. Of course, Kyler Murray is hurt, but the Commanders won the game. That was expected, so we really don't have to talk about that game. I mean, let's be real. Cardinals are going to be tanking hard this year. In the next game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos, man, Denver, I don't know what's going on with y'all, man, but it's just tough to see. Russell Wilson didn't really have a bad game. I mean, he completed 27 out of his 34 passing attempts, throwing for 2 touchdowns and 177 passing yards. But I don't know. Just like starting off the game with the onside kick, I just really don't understand it. Sean Payton, of course, he's going to do things his way, which, I mean, he's a Super Bowl winning coach, so I would say so. Jimmy G on the other side, he looked really good. Had 200 passing yards, had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He even ran a little bit to secure the win, getting a first down at the end of the game. But yeah, those are both 2 divisional opponents, and we'll see what they do. But I don't know about the Broncos, man, because the AFC, like I said, is just top heavy. The Rams surprised a lot of people, beating the Seahawks handily 30-13. Matthew Stafford, of course, is back. Had 334 passing yards. The running back, Kyron Williams, had 2 touchdowns as well. Tutu Atwell has 2 touchdowns and 119 yards. A lot of new players on the team. I believe over 30-something rookies, if I'm not mistaken. But hey, they won this game against the Seahawks because the Seahawks, they played really good last year. No one expected them to do well. Geno Smith and things of that nature. Geno Smith was even frightened by the presence of Aaron Donald in the backfield.
On 3rd down, Smith, pressure comes late. Smith, pressure comes.
So yeah, there was that. They just couldn't get things clicking in that game, but I still have hopes for the Seahawks to potentially make another playoff run. Not necessarily be serious contenders in the NFC. The Rams, we'll see what happens if Cooper Kupp can get back healthy. Hey, anything's possible. He did have that Triple Crown season in 2021. Sunday Night Football, we were in for a matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Everyone was talking about how close it was going to be. Well, that faded off a couple minutes into the game. First, a blocked field goal turned to a touchdown. Then a strip on Saquon Barkley turned into a defensive touchdown. So that was 2 touchdowns defensively and from special teams from the Cowboys, and they just really lit the Giants up. They couldn't get anything going. Had 7 sacks on Daniel Jones, Micah Parsons, and the crew showed up. DeMarcus Lawrence, Trevon Diggs had a strip fumble in the 4th quarter. They just really sent a huge message. And I know the conception of the Dallas Cowboys, we really can't question how good they are in the regular season because they do great in the regular season. The biggest question is going to be with Dak Prescott in the playoffs, because that defense, they held really well against the San Francisco 49ers last year. It was just Dak throwing those 2 interceptions, but we'll see what happens. The offense looked a little bit shaky at times, not in terms of just seeing a turnover happen, but it was raining and things like that. And of course, Mike McCarthy newly calling plays, but Tony Pollard looked good, of course, having 2 touchdowns. And you have new people in the lineup like Brandon Cooks, because CeeDee Lamb is your number 1, and still having Michael Gallup and just trying to get the tight ends involved like Ferguson. So we'll see what happens there. But the Cowboys, they definitely sent a message, arguably having the best defense in the league. I will say the 49ers, they showed up crazy against the Steelers, but the Eagles and Cowboys definitely have the top 3 defenses, I would say, in the league. Of course, you have to put the Jets in there too. But talking about the Giants, we really don't have to say much. I mean, Daniel Jones, that was a tough outing. Everyone was roasting him, talking about that contract that he got. And man, it's not looking good. I mean, that was just a wash for the Giants. We'll see what happens going forward. Now, last but not least, we have to talk about Monday Night Football. And of course, in this game, the Jets would go on to win at the end with a touchdown by Xavier Gibson. But that's not even close to what the biggest storyline from this game is and biggest takeaway. Man, Aaron Rodgers, the most devastating news. Officially today, an MRI confirmed that he tore his Achilles and he will be out for the season. It just really sucks, man. 4 plays into his Jets career. And the biggest question that's going to be lingering, is he going to call it quits as a career, or is he going to fight back for this rehab and hopefully try to play in 2024? It's a really tough situation. And the crazy thing is, they still beat the Bills. So we already know that with Aaron Rodgers, as long as he was healthy and just playing good football, this team could have really went far and made a good playoff run. Just not seeing Aaron Rodgers play on this team, because he really seemed rejuvenated, had a good spirit, just how encouraged and how ready he was to prove people wrong and really make a run at another championship. So yeah, it sucks, but regardless, Aaron Rodgers, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL, and just praying the best for him. But now, it's time to talk about Josh Allen, because that was ridiculous, bro. 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions to Jordan Whitehead, the same player. Bro, like, I love Josh Allen's game, don't get me wrong, but like, we have to talk about his turnovers. Like, everyone clowned Dak last year, but like, with Josh Allen, he's had 90 turnovers since entering the league. Like, that's insane. That's nothing to just sleep on. And I think he's a great quarterback, but he has to be smarter. Sometimes he just does the dumbest things, like for no reason. He chunked that first interception for no reason, and he has a powerful arm. That was the biggest takeaway from that, but that's ridiculous. He has to get that under control. And really right now, I'm not even looking at the Bills or Jets in that division. The freaking Dolphins, like we saw earlier, they look super scary. So with them, you got to score 30 to beat them, in my opinion. So that's who's really looking tough. But the Bills, man, Josh Allen, you got to get that stuff under control. But yeah, guys, let me know in the comments down below what y'all learned from this week 1. For me, I learned that we can't overreact to everything. I would just say the one thing that's an appropriate reaction is Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. Like, it really sucks to see that. But like everything else, you can't make a big conclusion about because it's 1 week. We've seen teams like the Lions last year almost make a playoff run after having a terrible start to the year. The Jaguars as well. So you can't overreact to 1 game in the regular season. I appreciate you guys watching. Always make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggyRuss, and also on TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for cooking videos, shorts, content, and things of that nature. More videos are on the way, guys. Definitely when I can. Of course, I'm in college right now in a busy fall semester, but posting as much as I can, guys. So more to come this season. Looking forward to this NFL year. A lot of good things in store. Y'all have a good one and be blessed.